Alright everybody, Mr. Porkchop back here with another video. Today's video is going to be on Python. We're going to kind of pick up where we left off on my tutorial on setting up Python and Sublime text editor. So at this point, if you guys watched that one, hopefully you guys have the Sublime text editor or whatever text editor um, you want to use. I'll be using this one. Again, just because it is very simple, it's great for beginners, and because the book that I'm using kind of just went through the process of setting this up. All right, so real quick before we get going, in this video, when I was editing it, I noticed I just opened up the previous file that I had, and because this is a video for beginners and you may not have watched the first video, I just wanted to show you guys how to create a new file in case you guys need to. So you can just come up here, click on New File, it'll show Untitled. What you're going to want to do is just come down, hit Save As, create a Python projects folder where you can keep all your Python projects, and then just name your file whatever you want, test1, test2, whatever, and then do .py. .py is going to tell your Sublime text editor that that is a Python file, and that's going to help you out when you run your code. That's all I got for this. I just want to throw that in there really quick before we get going. So I'm going to open the file that we had previously, which was this hello world file. This was what we printed in the very first video. So let me just go ahead and see if I can print this again. So yeah, it does print. You can hit Control B to build it, or like I showed in the other video, you can just go to Tools and click Build. So in this, the very first thing I guess we're going to go over now is some more stuff with strings. So you guys, I believe in the first video I did explain that whatever is in quotations here is a string. That is the basically the variable type, or just that's the type, the data type I should say. It is a string. And then we're going to go over some variables. Variables you can think of as basically labels for data. So let's take this print for example. Let's say that we want to create a variable to hold our string that we want to print. So we can just do message, and then we put the little equal sign there to basically say that we are going to initiate or initialize this variable to some data, and that data that we're going to initialize it to is going to be a string that's actually a string that is going to say hello world, and I'm keeping that lowercase for a reason that I will show you guys later. And now we will go ahead and erase what we have written in here, and we will just print message. Alright, let's go ahead and build that. And you can see that it does print hello world, which is what I have up here. Now the cool thing that well, there's a lot of things that you can do with strings, so we're going to go through some of them. Let me just pull up a book here. One of the things that you're going to be able to do with strings that's pretty useful is basically adjust the case of it. So you can go uppercase, lowercase, or title case, which is going to just put the first letter of each word as uppercase. So the way that you do that is by basically through different methods. So the method that we're going to use for this is going to be the method title. And you can see here, in order to basically get this title method to work on our message, you're just going to put a dot. So your variable here, which is message, is initialized to hello world, and then you're going to print message, but when you print it, it's also going to tell this method here, title, to change the H and the W to an uppercase. And all your methods are going to have these these parentheses after them, and that is because a lot of methods need additional information, and that information is called parameters. But a lot of times methods need additional information, and that additional information goes inside these parentheses. Even if there is no information, like this title, it doesn't need any information, but even with no information needed, you still need those parentheses. And you can see also one thing I wanted to note before we run this is the different coloring of the names and the letters. That is basically syntax highlighting. So it's going to highlight different things, and different text editors will highlight differently. But for the most part, you should have, variable names being a different color, methods being a different color, strings being a different color. And that just makes your code a little easier to read. But yeah, let's go ahead and we'll just do Control B. We'll run this. And now you can see that the hello world, even though it has lowercase here, is uppercase now when it prints. The other thing you can do is to go upper, and obviously this is going to change all the letters to uppercase. So if you run it, now you can see everything is uppercase. A few things that you might use these for is for maybe when you're trying to sort data, because if say you're sorting a list of names and you're not 100% sure if everybody capitalized their name the same way or if some people did all lowercase, uppercase and lowercase will be sorted differently. So the safest thing to do would be to basically pull all your strings and then just use the lower method. So you can do lower, and then that method is going to change all your strings to lower. So you could pull them all in as lower, and then you can sort them, and then after that you could use the title method in order to set all the first to set everything to the correct capitalization, where the first letter of each word, or name in this case, would be uppercase. So that's just some of the different ways that you could use some of these methods. Another cool thing you can do with strings is you can concatenate them, which is just like a fancy word for saying take a bunch of strings and put them together and make one big string. So let's make a few more variables here. Let's just do like first name, and then we'll set that equal to, I'm just going to follow the examples in this book. This is what they're giving me. Also with naming conventions, as you, excuse me, with the different naming conventions, each language, C++, Java, Python, they all kind of have their own rules when it comes to how you're going to name things. But a good rule of thumb is basically just to have no spaces in your name, to have variable names like start lowercase. Normally, like in Java, class names, if you're creating a class versus a variable, you're going to have the class name uppercase, or at least like the first one is going to be capitalized. I won't get into it too much, but for now, just know that your variable names should be all together. Don't start them with numbers, and keep them lowercase. If you're going to do two different words, like I'm doing first name, last name, put an underscore between them instead of a space. And that's just kind of good practice when it comes to variable names. One thing too that I learned in this book, actually, you can use either a single quote like this. You can either use the double quote or the single for strings. That's not for C++ and Java. It's a little different. At least as far as I know, the single quotes are only for characters, which would be one letter. But in Python, apparently you can use either or for strings, which is kind of cool. All right, and then if you want, let's say, a full name, we can concatenate or just add together those two variables above us. And in Python, to do that, you just put the letter F in front of what you want. And then if you have a variable, then you're just going to put that variable inside of curly braces. So we'll do first name. And you can see actually that it gave me that variable name. And that's another kind of cool thing when it comes to text editors. If you start to type something, it gives you a list of options of things that might match it. And then you can use your arrow keys or you can click on them and then just hit enter and it'll fill that in for you. Just saves some time for typing. So that, you're just going to do that. And then this full name variable will now hold these two strings together inside of one string. So if we wanted to go down here and actually see what's inside of our full name, then we could do print full name and then just hit Control B and it prints ADA Lovelace. I don't know what this person was thinking when they wrote their names. Pretty funny. All right. On top of just adding those two names together, you could also put something in front of it. So you could put another string like hello and then have it do that. And then if you run it, you'll see that it says hello and then the name. And again, because these are lowercase, if you really wanted to, you could basically put these two you could use that title method in order to capitalize them, and then it'll print with those capitalized. So pretty cool stuff. All right, so some other things you can do with strings is basically remove or add white space, meaning basically just spaces. So if I put a space here, that this is going to, even though this may look very similar to, let's just go ahead and do another first name 2, and we'll give it ADA. So these may look identical to us pretty much, but this white space is going to be viewed very differently in the computer. It's going to recognize that as a completely different string because there's a white space in it. And that can be confusing at times when you're trying to compare strings. So one thing you might want to do is to try to remove that. And in order to remove it, at least temporarily, you can go ahead and do well, let's actually just go ahead and print first name. So if we build this, you'll see it does ADA and you can't really see the space. So maybe I'll put the space on this side. That way it should show it a little differently. So with the space on that side, if I go ahead and build it, you can see that there's a little space. And then if I build first name 2, obviously that space goes away. So let's go and see if we can remove that space temporarily. The way to do that is to basically do an R or an L, depending on what side the space is on. So our space is on the left side, so we'll do L strip. Again, this is a method, so we need our parentheses, and then we can hit build, and you'll see that it's gone. However, just because we removed it temporarily using this L strip, it doesn't change it permanently. So if we come down here and we go print first name again, we build this, you'll see that the first one builds it without the space. The second one is still showing the space. If we really wanted to change this permanently, then what we could do is write our variable name again and then do first name L strip, and then that will remove it permanently. And I guess I should have explained this a little earlier. Variable names, your compiler is and your program is going to keep track of those variable names, and you can change them at any point. So in the second line here, I set my variable to space ADA, but in my third line, I'm setting it again to the same value, but with that lstrip method removing the space, and that is going to associate my variable with the value of that string without the space. So now if we build it, even though I don't have that .lstrip method in my print line here, it still doesn't have that space. So yeah, just gonna get rid of this second name here. Try to avoid some confusion. So now also let's say that you wanted to add some spaces. So you can do inside of your string some cool stuff. You could do basically this backslash here with a T, and that's for tab. So if we print that, you'll see that now there is a whole tab space before my string. You can also do the N, which is going to be a new line. So if we build that, you can see that the first line is blank. It starts it on the next line. So it does a whole new line. And maybe a better example of that would be to do maybe like hello. Actually, let me do it after that. We can build after we put in the right variable. Let's do the full name. And now you can see that hello is on the first line, and then once it hits this new line, it jumps down to the second one. Also, you can combine them. You could do like new line and then tab. And then if you build that, you'll see that it has hello on the first line, goes to a new line, and then gives you that tab, and then shows you your string. So yeah, you can do a lot of cool stuff with that. Also, going back to removing white space, I know I said before you could do right or left, just R or L strip, and that'll remove it. What you can also do, if you want to just remove the space on both sides, then you could just do strip. So you can do first name dot strp, and that is going to remove space on both sides of it. So you won't have space on either side. So as you can see, there's no space on either side when you use that. So a few things the book kind of points out, or one of the things the book points out is, like I said earlier, you can use single quotes or you can use double quotes. However, if you're if you're inside your double quotes and you want to use the apostrophe, that's fine, no problem there. You can go ahead and print last name, and it works fine. It gives you that apostrophe. However, if I was using single quotes for this string, and then I also tried to put that apostrophe, you can see it's already giving me some red. If you try to print that, it's going to tell you right here that the last name, and it kind of gives you a little point here. It says a syntax error, invalid syntax. So the IDE here is going to try to help you solve your problems when you do have issues. As you can see, there's like red here. It highlights pretty well exactly what your issue should be, or at least where the area of the issue is. So some things just kind of keep in mind when it comes to strings and using singular double quotes. Alright guys, so that's all I got for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it and learned a lot about strings and some variables and methods as well. I'm going to continue to go through my book here, and maybe I'll even link I'll link this book or a page to this book on Amazon if you guys want to buy it yourself. It's only like 25 bucks. But I'll continue to make videos as I go through. I'm gonna take it slow, like little chunks. I don't want to have like a 5 hour video. I'm just gonna kind of keep doing hopefully 15-20 minute videos on each little section that I go through. So if you guys enjoyed this, I'd appreciate it if you liked the video, and subscribe, comment too if you guys want to see particular things or if you have ideas for future videos. I'm going to stick with Python for a little while and then probably jump back to C++. I also have like I got a couple different books here I'm going to be going through. I have this cracking the coding interview book as well, which I'm going to be probably making some videos on in the future, but I want to try to get through this Python book first.